All right, what up, everybody? Welcome to the D-Money podcast, filmed here at the Roundtable Recording Company in beautiful Broad Ripple, Indiana. Today, I got a special guest. One of my favorite race car drivers. He drives race cars. As a kid, I always like to go fast, drive fast. I buy fast cars. Conor Daly.
Thank you.
What's up, man?
I appreciate that. It's very nice. And I'm glad that you like to buy fast cars.
I like fast cars. I mean, I can't afford the fast cars that I like.
Me neither, yeah. Yeah.
But I do like fast cars.
Who doesn't? It's hard to find people who... I feel like you talk to... The one thing that I've met very random people in the world sometimes, and the one thing you can always kind of agree on is like when they hear like, oh, that's Conor, race car driver. It's like, oh, I have a this or that.
Right.
And you can always talk about cars most of the time.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
So how'd you get into cars?
Well, I mean, for me, it was always my family. I mean, my dad was a race car driver, and he, when I was born, I was literally in the cockpit of his Nissan GTP sports car at the Sebring 12-hour race, when I was 2 months old, I think.
Wow.
So, he retired when I was born. Like that was like his pretty much last race.
Mm-hmm.
He won it, which is great. But yeah, once I was born, he retired, but he went straight into like TV broadcasting for racing. So
okay.
I was growing up and he was still going to the races every weekend. And my mom worked at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it's always been in my family. And it's something that, I grew to love. I mean, I like a lot of other sports, and I tried to play a lot of other sports, but racing was really like, that was what really made me happy.
But so you like the other sports, but it's in your family, but so how does someone get into racing, like who wasn't growing up in the sport or born in a cockpit of a race car? How does someone get into that?
Well, I mean, it's really tough. It's probably the toughest sport to get into. My dad, like his story, like my dad's dad owned a little corner grocery store in Ireland. And so my dad went to a Formula Ford race in Ireland and saw it, and he's like, I want to do that. And my dad started out by racing like demolition derby cars, like really, really low quality, cheap stuff in Ireland, and went to Australia to work in the iron ore mines to make enough money to buy his first race car. Wow. So like there's stuff like that where, you can't do that nowadays. Like nowadays it's way different.
Yeah.
But Alex Rossi, who's another driver, former teammate of mine and Indy 500 champion. I mean, his family wasn't into it, but he was, sometimes nowadays you might take your kid to a go-kart track or something, and like you might trip over like, oh, he really enjoys this or she really enjoys this. And a lot of cities have go-kart tracks where you can go to. We've got 3 around here. We've got K1 on the north side, we've got Fast Times in the dead center of the city, and then Sarah Fisher's place in Speedway now. So you can go to any of those 3 places and like start driving a go-kart, which is kind of like that's how it starts. And
so those are like the level of beginner drivers.
Pretty much, yeah.
Dang, and crazy.
We've got one of the best go-kart tracks in all of North America as well, in Newcastle, Indiana. So
really?
Like, that's where I grew up racing. That's where Joseph Newgarden grew up racing, multi Indycar champion. And we still love going out there to this day.
Nice.
So that's how it all starts. And it's tough because they're obviously like, you've got to find some people to help you out because it's going to cost some money to like buy a go-kart and do that stuff. But, if you can get it going, if you can find some people who help you out, it's definitely not impossible.
Oh, I bet. Now, when you're first starting out to be a driver and you're getting into actually making money driving,
takes a long time.
I bet it does. So that's kind of where I'm going with like, how do you end up getting sponsorships? Do you seek sponsorship or do people seek you? It depends on what.
Well, it's hard. Like, my story is my dad had a lot of contacts, people who sponsored him when he raced. So I was very fortunate to have, people like that who wanted to help out. And obviously the money was way less at the lower levels than it is, at the top levels.
Yep.
But, I had some support from, a couple different partners that my dad had met and, small things here and there. And, My first year in cars, though, the championship that I competed in, there was a scholarship fund if you won the championship, which was $350,000 to take to the next level, to get up to the next level. And so I was able to win that. So like, it's kind of like I scholarshiped myself up because I then won the next championship, which was more money to pay for the next level. So suddenly I was able to thankfully vault myself up without having to rely on, seeking out $400,000 or something like that to try and, pay for this lower level racing. And it's always tough no matter what. But thankfully, we have this road to IndyCar set up in North America, which has a scholarship system. And
that's nice.
So thankfully we were able to take advantage of that. And then, you can also do things like, have investors, you sell stock in yourself essentially.
Right.
And, I signed a 10-year investor contract when I was 15.
Dang.
And, by the time I was 18, the guy was like, actually, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do it anymore, which was like weird. It was a little strange, but people with a lot of money sometimes make, do odd things. It's just kind of what the nature of it. But, it was a great support system to have. And thankfully I didn't have to pay him back because he was the one who pulled out of the contract. So that's good.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, drivers have multiple stories, but basically you have to give up everything, sacrifice everything, potentially like future earnings for a long time just to make it, because it's very hard to.
You got to have it right then.
Yeah. You gotta, like, the opportunities don't come very often. And when you're younger, you gotta take advantage of every step of that ladder. And thankfully I did, and it was very lucky, but it's not the easiest sport to get into.
Right. It doesn't seem like it.
No. I mean, when there's 7 billion people in the world and only 33 get to start at the Indy 500 every
which
year,
is
so
wild.
It's wild.
That's wild. What do you think would be the optics of racing it's a very exclusive. We just talked about how many people race the Indy 500, but it's an exclusive kind of group. And to me, the diversity is pretty low, so I've always been trying to figure out how the optics can change, and then how can we reach a different audience in that sport, because I've recently become very engaged with racing, so it's like with everything we see going on, like seeing people who look like you do it makes it a little more appealing. You understand? Like, you kind of go after things that you are familiar with. So what do you think we can do to change that?
I mean, it's hard, man. I think no matter what, racing, because it costs so much, you have so many more people who come from successful families who end up making it. Like, it's very hard. It's almost the same in Hollywood, though, too. You see a lot of successful actors who are now older, but their kids are now successful actors. Like, I just heard an interview today with Scott Conn. I did not know his dad was James Conn. I was like, of course, you know what I mean? So like,
he looks like James Conn.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just didn't put that together. And then you listen to all these stories. So there's a lot of that in racing. There's a lot of family history. There's a lot of financial wealth that those guys gravitate towards cars. And I think, one of the coolest stories right now, though, is like Lewis Hamilton. I mean, Lewis Hamilton has done so much for, the sport in general, and bringing so many eyes to the sport, but also being, an incredible representative for our sport. So I think that's great. But it's I would love to see, how we keep progressing over the next couple of years, because now we have, a lot more diverse initiatives in our sport. Like Roger Penske's pushing it. There's drivers that are being, there's their female racing series now. We're trying to get African American drivers into this team in the USF 2000 series. So like, they're trying hard for sure. But again, it's one of those sports that I think it's going to take a while. Like, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, I mean, money is really important.
Yeah.
And if it costs that much, like you said, you got a scholarship for $350,000.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah,
I mean, but there's also other avenues to get into racing, and people always look at, I want to be a driver.
Yeah,
but you can be on the pit crew. You can do all these other things to get in, and I think that if we somehow reached out to where you can be like, let's invite people to see what we do. Let's invite these kids, or college athletes will be great pit members, I would assume. Like,
they are. That's what NASCAR in the NASCAR world, they have like a legitimate like pit crew program that go after college athletes, mainly college football players who didn't make it to the NFL.
Those are the people who would excel at that.
Yeah, and they're very good. Yeah, they're very good at it.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that they do a great job there, and even NASCAR. I think NASCAR is such a different world from us. Like they're way stronger than we are right now because they have America's attention. Like they've got the entire country's attention, and IndyCar is still. We've got to make a lot of progress to get there. Still, we have the Indy 500, obviously, which is the greatest spectacle in racing. It's the biggest sporting event in the world, obviously. But we got to have people that also know that we race another 16 times during the year. You know what I mean? Like there's a wild stat that like 96% of the people that watch the Indy 500 don't watch another IndyCar race all year long. Wow. So it's like it's something that we just have to keep working on.
Long Beach. I love that Long Beach.
Yeah,
race.
I mean
that's a big one.
But see, like you're like you support us, like you're a fan, like
right.
You know
true.
that, but it's hard. It's really hard to get that out there, just because we're just smaller right now.
Dang, we got to work on that.
I know. No, we're trying.
I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, we bust our butts every day, man. We're like, anytime we can do anything to just make someone else, even if it's just word of mouth. Like you're just like, hey. You ever been to Long Beach? You're like, what is that? Like, great race.
Great race.
And they're like, we didn't even know there was a race there. Yeah. Like, yep, it's amazing.
On the streets of Long Beach.
Yeah.
That's one of the most beautiful courses I could, could think of.
Yeah, hopefully we go there next year.
I hope you do, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the schedule, but hopefully the world gets sorted out and we can figure it all out.
Speaking of that, last year, you guys did a lot of virtual driving.
Mm-hmm.
How was that? And how did you prepare for that as opposed to getting into a real car? Like, what was your mindset going into that?
Well, I mean, honestly, it was just to pass the time, and it was to give our fans something that we could watch and we could all enjoy together. And I obviously started really pushing my Twitch channel and trying to get our fans more involved in the communication side. Just get people into the chat room, get people into the the stream, and so we could talk about racing and maybe have a few laughs over some competition. And to be honest, it was something that I don't know if we will ever see again. We had literally the full field of IndyCar drivers, like current IndyCar drivers and past, and young drivers that are all competing against each other on a video game,
right? Like
online, and it was broadcast on NBC. Like
I know
the craziest thing ever. Yeah.
That was wild.
And I think truly because of how everything was just locked down, people were just waiting on stuff. I don't think we'll ever see that again, but it was something that was really cool, and it definitely got a lot of different drivers' personalities more so out there. I know, like Alex Rossi, for example. Alex Rossi doesn't talk to anyone. Like he doesn't ever, and like he's always been kind of known like that. But when he got on, these racing games, and he's in my Discord, and we're just kind of talking and just hanging out, like people really enjoyed it. And the same with my boss, Ed Carpenter. Like Ed Carpenter was just kind of hanging out. Never expected Ed Carpenter to be a video game guy, but sure enough, he ended up being a big sim racer, and we all had a great time. So it was something that I think was great for our community and our fan base. I know they're trying to do more of that before the next season, like the actual real season, which I'm curious to see who actually shows up to do that now. Now that like we don't have to, or like it's not, we're still going real racing. Whereas like earlier we were like, we don't know when we're going racing.
What else are we going to do?
I don't even remember the month of April. Like it was just every day I was on a simulator. I went to the gym, I was on the simulator, and like I was just like, there was nothing else going on because you couldn't do anything. Dang. So it's just so weird.
Yeah, I thought it was dope. I watched one race. And to me, it felt like we were really watching a race.
Yeah,
it was
like
good.
We did the virtual Indy 500 or whatever, and like I finished second at it. And there was like a press conference. I was on NBC afterwards getting interviewed. I'm sitting in my shorts and like a polo, but I was sweating in my kitchen chair, and I'm just like, hey, NBC's live in my room right now. It's wild.
I saw online you had a good setup too.
Well, I had a terrible setup, and then it became better because people decided to help me out.
They were taking care of you.
They sent me I was sitting on one of my kitchen table chairs and put a wheel on my glass desk, and just basically was sitting there over a pillow trying to so I could feel my tailbone after an hour, which was very hard.
I bet.
And a simulator company that I actually know very well, they're like, look, we're going to send you a simulator.
It's like, you need
But
this.
It was also at the end of the quarantine stuff. So like we started going real racing, and it was like this like $30,000 simulator showed up at my house. I was like, no idea what I'm going to do with this now.
I'll take it.
But sure enough, like I now use it every week. Like, and I'm on it all the time.
But is it good for like training? Is it Is it accurate at all? Like, how does it feel?
iRacing is the game that we use and the simulation that we use. And honestly, they do a great job. They do a lot of research. They talk to a lot of drivers. Actually, doing the stuff that we did during that couple months actually helped them a lot, because after all of what we told them to do, like what happens in real life and all this stuff, they added all those things to the games. Like They added the in-car adjustable cockpit tools that we have in real life. So like you have all this stuff now that they were able to, I think, take from us, which was kind of cool. And honestly, it is without a doubt the best racing game, simulation game that you can play. And
good.
Nothing is like real life. Like, it's not going to be real life because of just everything that you can't possibly simulate.
Yep.
But for sure, it gives you, a good idea of, vehicle dynamics and what, certain race cars have characteristic wise.
Right. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Going into 2021, there's a lot of things that we aren't clear about. As a country, you as a racer, there's a lot of things, and I'm sure, just like everybody, this election season was important to everyone. Did you vote?
Oh yeah, of
Right,
course.
right on.
Vote. Yeah, gotta vote.
That's important. But what do you expect? What are your expectations of 2021 away from racing right now? And then we'll go into what you expect from racing.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm a very optimistic person. So no matter what, I'm always like looking forward. I'm saying, hey, you know what? We're gonna make the best of every situation.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think that's a way better way to be than, there's so much negativity in the world too. And it's just like, man, come on, like, what's the point in that? Like, you just gotta, like, if you want to make your life better, like make other people's lives better, like you got to be positive about stuff. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm looking forward to the future. I think there's going to be a lot of people that hopefully once we, sort out all this, COVID stuff and we start to figure out, all right, do these vaccines work? Great. Awesome. Perfect. Let's go. Let's kick things back into gear. You know what I mean? Because I know friends with small businesses. I know people, with, that make their living purely off of something they built for so many years, the restaurant, bar industry, whatever it is. And so you want to see that stuff get back to normal. And I love going out and talking to people and socializing. Like, I missed so badly our autograph sessions that we have every race. There was none of that. We didn't get to interact with a single fan this year, which is so sad, because that's such an enjoyable part of our sport. Is our fan base is it's a great fan base.
Right.
So yeah, man, I mean, I definitely think everyone still has a ton of questions about how it's all going to go and what's, what dominoes are going to fall first. You know what I mean? But I try to stay positive about it and just, hope that we can get all of our races in and hope that we can get people to these events, and especially the Indy 500. Obviously, that's, that's our most, that's the biggest thing for us business wise. That's what every single entry in the field revolves their entire year around. That's where all of our sponsors revolve their entire, program around. Wow. So it's very, 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 very important that we have the ability to sell all the tickets and everything and make sure that, it's happening.
That's the cash cow for the sport.
It is. I mean, it's the only reason why we survive. Yeah.
Right.
That's the only reason.
It's like, is it 250,000 people?
There's 249,000 permanent seats, and then like a total of like over 100,000 GA and like all that stuff. So it's, it's well over 300,000 for that day.
That is wild.
Yeah. Dang. It's amazing to see, honestly. Like and we missed it so much. Like it was so weird during this August, which is when we had to do it. But it was just sad. Like I was walking up to driver intros.
Did they not let any fans in?
There was no
fans
at all.
Because at first I thought they were going to let fans
they were
like 25,000 or 100,
yeah,
something real low.
The mayor shut that down.
Okay.
So on whatever IU Health and the mayor got together and they're like, "Yep, that's that. We're out on that." So I was like, "All right, well, you know what? That sucks," because the Speedway has definitely enough space to put 25,000 people. Like you could put a ton of people spaced out around there.
With 25,000, you won't even have to see a person.
You literally, like you wouldn't see anyone.
Right.
So that was a shame, obviously, because there was a lot of people. Like I got contacted by several people that had been to, 65, 70 plus Indy 500s in a row. For the last 70 years, they've been going to this race and they've never missed it. And that was the saddest part, you know what I mean? And, you know, I was able to get one guy in. We were able to get some people in the Pagoda. They had like some of the major track partners. I think they basically just put people in the Pagoda. So in the Pagoda, there were, you know, each team got like 2 people that they could bring from their sponsors. And very, very small amount of people. But we had the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds there, obviously, because they did the flyover, which was really cool. And I was able to help get a guy there who has been to, I think, something like over 75 races in a row, and he loved it. I mean, he had a great time. So, you know, it's tough, but I cannot wait to see. I think when it does come back to full strength, it's just going to be an electric atmosphere, which is going to be fun.
I bet. When it comes back, I don't like wherever you're racing or anything. I would love to like come and videotape a day of what you do in preparation and all that, and just
for the 500.
Any race, I don't care. It doesn't matter. 500 is big time. Like, I just want to follow you and see what you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, I'd be down. You could do that for sure.
Yeah, I just want to see it. You know, like follow a driver through a race day
for sure. Well, it would have to be, you know, something that is truly fully backed, because that's the full experience, right?
Correct. Like, we not until it's all the way.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot, man. I think people think racing is definitely the most underrated sport when it comes to work ethic, physicality, just anything in general. Like, and that's because all you see when you turn on the TV is, you know, all right, these guys are strapping into these rocket ships and they're driving around for a little while. And it's like, well, that's easy. You know, we drive on the highway every day. It's like, you guys have no idea. Like, because you truly can't. Like, I can go outside right now, shoot a basketball at the hoop and say, I am not playing for the Pacers. And I can throw a football and be like, yep, there's no reason why the Colts should ever draft me. You know what I mean? So like, but that's something that like, you know, athletes work their entire lives for, and you can see that, but like no one is seeing us like do the training that we do and do the amount of laps that we've done on the go-kart tracks over the years. Or the
so take us through like your physical agenda. Like, how do you stay in shape, and what's your diet like?
Yeah. So, I mean, we train every day, every morning. I work with St. Vincent Sports Performance here in town, every morning for like an hour and a half. And then I also ride my bike in the afternoon. So we for sure try to do two physical sessions a day, which is like super important. Right. And I'll
tell you what, that's more than Pacers and Colts do.
No, but I mean, it's a lot. And especially this year, the cars now that, you know, we have the new aero screen on the car, which is for safety, which has been, you know, saving lives. That's great. It's awesome. But it's also very hot in the car, and it's also made it heavier. So the steering, we don't have power steering in our race cars either. So the steering is very heavy, and we did a lot of double header race weekends as well. And the amount of heat that was coming through, you know, for us during a 2-hour race period, you know, was enough to lose 16 pounds during one race. And then you have to immediately go back into that again for a race the next day. So you're pushing your body to the absolute limit of fluid loss and beyond that. You know, after the second race at Iowa this year, I passed out and had to be taken to the infield care center. And I had to wrap my legs in ice just so I could get to the plane so I could walk, because I was in so much pain from cramping, because there was just nothing left in my body. So people have, but I can't tell you to go out and do that. Like, I can't tell you to go wrap yourself in blankets and drive around 465 for 2 hours, because it's just not the same thing. Right. And, you know, with the weight that's coming through the steering wheel, I mean, the G forces that we pull, the roughness that the tracks produce that our body has to go through, is all we can do is tell you about it and try to paint a picture, right? And like, I wear this Whoop wristband now, like this heart rate monitor that I wore every race. And like every race, you're like, I've tried to post my heart rate data, and people are like, it's ridiculous. I'm like, well, no, it's like real. Like, this is like, you're at maximum heart rate for 2 hours. Like, you're literally averaging 155 beats a minute for 2 hours. And it's like, that's like a marathon runner. Yeah. Like, that's, if not more.
Yeah, so that's insane.
In an even hotter environment. So there's a lot that I actually hope in the next couple of years that the TV broadcast starts to bring in. Like, I think every driver should have a heart rate monitor on, and they should be showing like our breathing rate, like what we're sweating, like potentially that. And I think with the modern technology, that's possible.
It's doable.
And I think that would bring another level to, you know, letting people know what's actually going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of races where, weekends where you're burning 6,000 calories in, a day. And it's you got to go right back into it the next day.
Nuts.
So it's something that I love telling people, because a lot of people are like, man, it's wrong. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like I literally, there's like, ask any physical, wizard of that has gone to school for many years to understand like what people's bodies go through. And like, you'll go to St. Vincent, but like a lot, cause like even like Terry McLaurin, he was playing for the Washington football team right now. Like, great guy. He was like training with us in the off season. A couple of the other NFL guys were training with us, and they're like, you guys have to do what? And we're like, yeah, man, this is crazy. And some of the trainers are like, yeah, you guys have no idea what these guys are going through. And it's cool to like let people know that. Like,
it is.
I think it's kind of nice.
I mean, I'm glad a lot of people listening now, they probably had no idea either.
No, I mean, it's every weekend you're going through a complete battle.
You're like destroying your body.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Your
like
hands are bleeding, your elbows
hell.
are bleeding. Everything is done at the end of the weekend.
And even when y'all get out of the car when the race is over, you guys are so excited. Like, we don't see any of that exhaustion.
No, because if you win, you're excited and you're still producing enough adrenaline. So you're like, great. But then, some of us who might not have had a great day, you're like, and he's passed out.
And gone.
Like, ouch.
Man.
Yeah, I've never had that out of a car. It was a very weird experience. Like, I literally blacked out and like fell in one of my team guys' arms, and I was like, whoa, that's not great. I should probably get this taken care of.
I've never passed out in my life, so I don't know what that experience is like.
I had, it was only for like 10 seconds, but like I came back and the guy's looking at me like, did you die? And I was like, no, I don't think so.
But you knew you passed out.
Oh, yeah, afterwards. Because like I didn't feel it happening until I woke up and I was like not holding my own body up. And I was like, oh, this is weird.
Dang.
Yeah.
So what are you passionate about other than racing? What drives you?
I have type 1 diabetes as well. So like I like to help people with that if I can. I've worked with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation every now and then, and work with Mankind Corporation, who does an incredible job, manufacturing some inhalable insulin that I use. Just great people there.
Inhalable
insulin, yeah.
Dang, that's not common, is it?
That's very new. Yeah, very new. It's changed my life for sure. Dang. It's the fastest acting insulin in the world. So
that sounds amazing.
Yeah. So trying to help people, because like that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of people knew I had diabetes for a long time. Because like I never really spoke about it. I did my thing. I got diagnosed when I was 14. So I've done all my racing with diabetes.
Wow.
And so, that's something that I enjoy like certainly telling kids about, because kids really struggle with it. Like and I have been very lucky. I have not struggled with it because I'm a perfectionist. Like if a doctor tells me, hey, you have to do that, I'm like, I'm going to do that because like I want to live life. Right. I like living. I don't want to do that.
Right.
So, I try to help people with that. But man, I love sports in general. Like I love, I miss going to live sporting events. I miss, hanging out with my friends. I miss, talking to people. I like learning about other sports. I like learning about what goes into that because I know how much goes into mine. So I like to talk to other people about, hey, what does it take for you to be an elite, athlete at your level, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I also like I'm a daredevil. So like I'll do anything. I want to try stuff. I got to go to Travis Pastrana's house this summer and jump off of stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And favorite guys.
Yeah. And I was like, this is the coolest time of my life. Yeah. And that's like, I'm always up for a challenge. I always want to do something that, people don't normally do or something that might be stupid, but I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? So
you skydive before?
I have. Yeah.
I've
love that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So I don't know, man.
It scared the shit out of me.
Oh yeah. I did it slightly hungover as well, which is a little concerning, but it cleared the hangover right up.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was in shorts. It was freezing. I mean, I'm super tall and somebody was on my back and I was scared of breaking my legs when I landed. But
well, yeah. I mean, you're massive. I don't know how. I was like, I don't know how that would work. It's like, thankfully, I am not that big, and I was like, oh, geez. I did it in Vegas though too, so it was nice and warm.
Yeah, my sister did it in Vegas. Yeah. I did it. I did it here.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Got to up your skydiving game,
right? What about? Can we talk about how you got on Amazing Race?
Sure, yeah.
So,
if you want,
yeah, because I like The Amazing Race. I watched The Amazing Race. I watched your season, and how did you get on there? Did you submit a tape and all that stuff? Like, did you want to do it, or did someone come to you?
So IndyCar basically has a relationship with some casting agents and people in Hollywood. Like, you know, I had a couple guys on Dancing with the Stars, Elio Castroneves, James Hinchcliffe. So some of those casting agents are also the casting agents for Amazing Race and different shows. So they, as I said earlier, like we need to try and get more attention, more like we got to get people to understand what is IndyCar racing. Like, and a lot of these, you know, a lot of people that were watching reality television shows do not watch racing at all, right? Like they have no idea what's going on. So we basically Alex Rossi was told, hey, we got this opportunity to do the show. And it wasn't originally me pitched as his partner. It was James Hinchcliffe.
Okay.
But James Hinchcliffe couldn't do it because he's Canadian. So I guess like you have to be American. You have to have an American passport because when they do all these visa stuff, it's weird. And then it wasn't going to be me either. It was Spencer Piggott. And then Spencer Piggott, he couldn't do it because he had to test like when they were planning on filming. So I was a third choice, which is understandable. That's about how my life goes. I'm like, everyone's like, the podium. We're like, fine, we'll do it with him. And it actually worked. I mean, it ended up working out really well. I told him in the first place because I loved Amazing Race growing up. Like it was one of my favorite shows. And so we went out there and we did have to do like an audition when we went out there, and we filmed like a minute video when we were at Pocono in 2017. Like we didn't have to do a ton, but like we had to do a little bit. And thankfully IndyCar helped us out a lot with that. And like the show wanted us to be on there because they had never had drivers on, because drivers, like, it's hard to take a month out of our lives. Like normally we're racing or testing or something. And this was the perfect opportunity for us to do it because we were getting a new car from 2017 to 2018. So no one had anything to do from September 25th till like January. And the show filmed September 25th to October 25th. So thankfully we had that month where we didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was fun, man. The creator of the show, Bertram, he is a big race fan. So as soon as we got out there, we're like, oh yeah, we're definitely getting on the show. Like this guy, he knew everything about Alex, knew everything about my dad and me. He's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great. Like I was like, yeah, sweet, let's go.
You're in there.
And yeah, man. I mean, it's watching it now. Like I'm watching, you know, the most recent season now. It's just like it's wild to think that we actually did that. Like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of travel. Like that's
another
really,
thing where
really
we don't
hard.
get to see all the work put into it, right? Yeah.
And it was hard, man. Like it runs you down. You don't have your phone. You can't talk to anyone. You don't do anything. You have nothing that you have normally in real life. It's just, it's a wild ride. But I'm glad we did.
So how they edited it? How did you like how it was edited? Like for like showing you guys and the stuff you went through.
Well, when you think about it, you're filming for essentially like 16 hours in a day. Like a leg could last 16 hours, and that's got to be edited into a 1 hour show.
Yeah.
It's split between 10 or 11
a whole
teams.
bunch of groups,
So I think we timed it like the very first episode. We had exactly like 1 minute and 30 seconds of screen time or something crazy.
Jeez.
So it's wild to see that.
Yeah.
I wish there were so many more things that weren't shown that I wish were, because we thought that it was like, oh wow, it's a wild moment.
Right.
Like, you know, in Africa, we crashed a car. Like we weren't driving, but like our taxi guy, like the right front suspension in our van collapsed and we ended up in a ditch.
Dang.
And that wasn't shown at all.
And
I was like, and they had to stop production. Like, because it was unfair. Like our car exploded. So like we were.
So they
stopped everyone. Yeah. So no matter where anyone was, they like called everyone and said, hey, stop.
See, that's stuff we don't see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, like it made it a fair race, but it was also something where like we were in the middle of the desert. Like what are we going to do? Like, are we going to get robbed? Like what's happening? Like, it was like us and our camera crew. Like that's it. So
wow.
It was, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I wish people could have seen, or at least got like a YouTube highlight or something. You know what I mean? But yeah, they've got to make decisions, and it's, you know, it's network TV. So they cut stuff pretty aggressively and just they do whatever they want to do.
in that situation, does your camera crew stay with you for the entire race? The same people?
No, so every leg they change. So like there's and these camera crews are like really, really talented people. You got it's me, Alex, camera, sound. So you're basically a team of 4.
Yeah.
And they rotate every leg. So one team or the other doesn't say, oh, well, their camera crew ran faster.
Suck,
so yeah. So you all rotate them around, which is cool. So we got to know a lot of people.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, when you think about what they're doing though too, we're trying to hustle through these cities, run as fast as we can with our backpacks on. But these guys have a 50-pound camera they're carrying and a sound pack too, and they've got to run with you. So these guys are hustling just as much as you are, and it's quite a challenge for them just as much as it is for us.
Yep.
But it was fun.
Yeah, it was good, man. I wish I can go an Amazing Race. I mean, that's the one I wouldn't do well on though.
You don't think so?
I'd rather do Survivor.
Who would you do Amazing Race with?
Oh, that's a good question.
Who's your go-to, who you think is smart, also physically capable, and not scared of anything?
Yeah. I would probably do it with my cousin.
Okay, there you go.
Cousin Shark. Yeah, he's very smart.
Yeah,
very athletic. He's quiet as well. So I'm loud. So we'll be a good kind of combination. Plus, he's the dude that will jump in the fire if I ask him.
There you go.
Like, he'll just go. You know. So that's the kind of people that I would want to take somebody I want to go to war with.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you could pick your partner, who would you take?
I mean, honestly, Alex was the guy because like Alex is. I mean, he's very smart, very quiet, and doesn't talk to people well. But like I do, I'm like, hey, don't.
That's a good combination like, when you're doing something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So like he did stuff that I also was like going to be very uncomfortable doing because you can split up tasks, right?
Yeah,
and like, and I think he's very good at doing certain things, and it really worked out well for us. But yeah, I really can't think of anyone better.
So that was a good experience.
Yeah, he's way overconfident too. But like sometimes that works out for people, right?
Right.
If you're so confident about something, like I'm not. I like to take a little bit of time and check the situation out. And like, all right, what are the variables that? But Alex is like, yep, nope, here we go, boom. Yeah. And I was like, sometimes that helped.
Dang, that's dope.
Yeah.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment with everything you've done in your life?
You know, it's tough to say. I mean, getting a pole last year, pole position in Indycar was really, really cool. I mean, when you go out there and beat, some of the best drivers in the world, that's great. And, I've finished second in IndyCar, which is also one of my accomplishments, but we got to win. So like, that's the next goal on the list. We've got a pole, we've been on the podium, we want to win a race now. Yeah. So we've been very, very close. But a lot of what I did in Europe, I think is something that I still am really proud of. There's only been 2 Americans in the last, 20 years that have won anything on the Formula One's, ladder system spectrum. So, F1, F2, F3, Alex won races in F2, I won races in F3, and almost won a championship in Formula 3, which is against, some of the best drivers in the world, guys that are now in Formula 1 for a long time. And so that's something that I think, is hard for Americans to do, and they don't like us over there. So it's a tough environment. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's, stuff like that is what I look back on and pretty proud of. I got to drive a Formula 1 car. I got to be a Formula 1 reserve driver. Didn't get to race one, but there's still not many Americans who can say that nowadays, which is pretty cool.
Why is it so hard to get in?
It's just their sport.
Oh, okay.
Europe and they're so anti us. Like they're like, Americans, they don't, they don't deserve to be in Formula 1. It's like, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
is Formula 1 the standard?
I mean, it's the top level in the world. Yeah. I mean, it's the world championship. It's the best of the best. Well, it's supposed to be the best of the best. It's not really, because there are some guys' dads who have bought them Formula 1 teams, like they're so rich that they are there for one reason, and that's because they own half of a country. You know what I mean? So that's happening more now because of the the financial state of the sport. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Formula 1 it's always been anti-American ever since like Mario Andretti was like world champion. Like that was really cool for Americans, but then it just became they don't think we work as hard as they do, or they don't think, and to be honest, like they're right. Like Americans kind of get this like lazy persona overall, you know what I mean?
But they can't lump the drivers into that.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But they do. And so, it's tough, but yeah, I'm definitely proud of like what Alex did over there and what I did over there for sure. It's something that we could be happy about.
Is that kind of like your plan? Like, do you want to stay in Indy, or do you have aspirations to be doing another level or another type of race? Like, would you ever race NASCAR?
Yeah, I mean, I did my first NASCAR truck race this year, so like that was a lot of fun. Me and Travis Pastrana like got together and had this crazy idea when we were drunk that we should race NASCAR trucks in real life together, and we ended up, talking to a lot of people, getting some incredible partners. Like iRacing sponsored us, and we've got some. We had a lot of fun, and this year NASCAR they ran races with no practice, so Travis and I showed up having no practice. I had never driven a truck in my life before, and we just went straight to the race, and it was awesome. Like, I truly enjoy racing in NASCAR. I've done one NASCAR Xfinity race before, and I like the way that the cars race. I think it's a completely different environment for us, and we'll obviously see that this year. Like, Jimmy Johnson is going to be racing against us in IndyCar, and that's going to be very, very interesting to see. And he's obviously one of the best ever in NASCAR, and now he's come to do IndyCar, which is very, very brave, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to do more NASCAR races. Formula One's kind of off that doesn't happen anymore. Like, I would have had to have done that when I was, 19, 20, 21. But yeah, I love IndyCar, love NASCAR, love sports car racing. I mean, we've got a lot to do here in North America, and still have a lot on my list of, things that I want to do and accomplish.
Yeah. Speaking about NASCAR, the Bubba Wallace situation.
Oh yeah.
So I found it weird that that sport stood up so much at that time, because I didn't expect that at all. I thought what they did was really huge, and the support that he got from the sport and other drivers, amazing. And
it was awesome.
It was wild. Like, the representation, like we talked about earlier, not there, but knowing what's right and knowing what's wrong is like, I was real impressed. So what was going through your head during that time?
Well, so Bubba and I share a sponsor. Bubba was sponsored by the U.S. Air Force last year as well, and so was I. So we've done some stuff together before. We've done some events. I know him, and a lot of my friends are great friends with Bubba. We obviously don't interact with the NASCAR world too much. Like, none of our races, conflict on the same weekend, so we're not always at the track together. But yeah, I mean, honestly, racing is very much always described like a family. Like, and I think everyone supports each other no matter what in a time of need, for sure. Especially, like, if someone's injured or if something's happening, if a family needs help, or in Bubba's situation, which was so wild, and you're just like, we gotta help this guy. We gotta stand up for this, this situation, because like you said, we know what's right and like what's wrong, and like, I think you'll see that, the racing world wants to be on the side of right, because I think that's also common sense. It's like, what are we doing here? This is right. So that was really cool to to see, and honestly, it's worked out really, really incredibly for Bubba. He's got one of the best opportunities that anyone's ever had in NASCAR next year with this new team that he's involved with. He's got some incredible sponsors, and I think the businesses and the sponsors that have rallied around Bubba that's even more impressive.
Was it Jordan?
Michael Jordan, yeah. So Michael Jordan is now a NASCAR team owner with Bubba and Denny Hamlin. So I think that's really exciting for the sport, and I think that can do a lot, for diversity in the sport as we keep going. You know what I mean? I think when you see a powerhouse team, you got Michael Jordan and Bubba Wallace. Those guys are going to be like, that's household names, hopefully, in NASCAR that they need. And, I'd love to see something like that in IndyCar as well. But, time will tell. We've got some great, young drivers coming through the ranks right now that hopefully can, prove that they've got what it takes to then get to the highest level and make an incredible statement in the sport.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's important because, like, being a black man, I am very vocal about how I feel about things.
Yeah.
And I have millions of white friends, Hispanic, Asian, but and we know what's right and wrong, but it's when they speak up for me or, in support of me that I understand we are in the same fight together.
Absolutely,
because you don't have to be a good person to not say anything. Like, you don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to. But it's when you speak up and speak out and not accept something that's very important. And when NASCAR did that, hockey did that said a lot to people like me I'm not into those sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I saw that they supported it.
You respect that. Yeah.
I respected it. Yeah. And that goes in everyday life.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, it was cool, man. I mean, it was, a wild time in the sport for sure. And there was a lot that, that got covered, that normally doesn't get covered, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ESPN coverage that racing, motorsport in general, whether it's NASCAR. I mean, I always think motorsport is one sport in general, right? Whether it's Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, it's still motorsport, right? So if one part of motorsport is succeeding, hopefully it helps all of them across North America. And that's kind of, what we ended up seeing out of it was so much attention drawn to the sport. And I think that helps all of us across the board because there was a lot of positivity and there was a lot of good stuff that was happening that I think, it will be good for the future.
Right. If someone was coming up right now, young kid, and they want to be Conor Daly.
Aim higher.
They want to be Conor Daly. What's their first step?
Well, I think honestly, you just got to ask the questions. Go to a go-kart track. I think that's literally the best way because I know, people that work at the go-kart track, certainly in Indiana, know a little bit about the sport and know a little bit. All right, hey, look, get in one of these go-karts. Let's see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what we have, I think, is truly, like a God-given ability. Like you have to have a talent. Like you can't learn. You can learn how to drive. You can learn how to drive fast. But you really are born to race, I think. And you kind of there's a lot of things that I notice in racing that I don't actually know that I'm doing, but it's subconscious.
Yeah.
You do things subconsciously, and I truly think you have to be born to do that. And there's a lot that you can learn. There's a lot that I've learned. There's a lot that I'm still learning. I learn more every day in a race car. Every day you're in a car, you learn more.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just about establishing a base of experience. Just get out there, start doing laps in a go-kart, talking to more people about it. How do you talk to them? How do you talk to your parents' friends that might have businesses that want to help you out? How do you talk to other people that have been involved in the sport? I always respect any young driver that comes up to me at a racetrack, whether they're a kid or, in the lower ranks that want to ask questions. I'll happily talk to you because I know that when I was a younger driver, the most exciting moments for me were talking to drivers that were in IndyCar or that hadn't made it.
Yeah.
Guys that were my heroes. I would go up and just talk like Thomas Scheckter, Dan Weldon, Sam Hornish Jr., guys that I got to meet and that I knew. I was anytime I could just ask them a question or just see, hey, what do you think about this? And then you just got to ask questions. You got to be a sponge for knowledge and experience. And I think, if you're trying to build this pyramid of experience, you want the widest base possible. You want to have all the information, all the, knowledge that you can possibly have, all the laps that you can have in go-karts and cars as you keep trying to go up this pyramid to get to the top. So I think that's the best thing that I could say is, if team owners see a very high level of dedication and they see a kid that's truly given up everything else in their life. Cause you really do. I didn't do anything a normal kid would have done growing up. I was racing every weekend, didn't go to prom, didn't go to didn't go to homecoming, whatever those things were. Never was around anything like that.
Yeah, you were consumed with racing.
You just have to fully engulf your life with being a racing driver. And honestly, it's very hard to do because you have so many other thoughts when you're growing up. You want to do, I want to do some fun stuff or just anything. But to truly be a professional athlete, I think at any level, you really have to give up almost everything. And it is worth it if you can make it happen. For sure, I'm very lucky to be where I am now. And it's it was all worth it. But yeah, I think when a team owner sees that in a young person or a team principal, they like that. They're like, hey, that's someone who really wants to do this. You know what I mean? So,
dang. What if someone didn't want to be a driver, but they just wanted to be on a team? A lot of fans, I would assume, just want to be in the sport. So how hard is that to do? You were talking about they have ways to get in NASCAR and they use athletes and all like that. So is it just being around and knowing someone, or it seems pretty exclusive?
Yeah, it is. It is. And because it's so hard to work on the IndyCars these days, you have to it's very interesting to see. There are guys who have been in IndyCar since my dad's been in IndyCar. You know what I mean? Like there are guys that have worked on my car that have also worked on my dad's race car, like in the 80s. You know what I mean? So like that experience is still around the paddock because it's invaluable. But there are a lot of teams now, like Carlin, a team that I drove for this year on the ovals that I got the pole position for. A very young lineup because their team is based in the UK, in England. And in England, there are a lot more racing mechanics that are trying to like go to school and do that stuff and apply to these teams and like love racing. Whereas in America, I think it's a little bit harder for younger people because they have so much else to do and they have so many other things that, that like are attractive to do job wise. But if you really do want to do it and you want to be a part of a team, you just got that same dedication that I talked about for driving. I think the same goes for mechanics and the same goes for, if you're a smart kid, good at what you do, you have that knowledge of, taking things apart, putting things together, doing whatever is, or even on the engineering side, you know what I mean? Like there are a lot more young engineers now who have gone to school for mechanical engineering and aerodynamicists that are out there that are now getting in IndyCar. And I think it's really important to have young blood in the sport because, eventually the older guys are going to retire, you know what I mean? And we got to replace them with, with young, hungry mechanics and young, hungry engineers. And, I know that for us, we brought on a young guy from, who went to Purdue or who is still going to Purdue. And he was the assistant engineer on my car or the data guy on my car for the Indy 500.
Yep.
And you just see that he loves to work on it. You know what I mean? He's like, hey, he's doing whatever he can. And I think when a team sees that, like, that's great. So it's going to take some work. Like it's hard. Like you got to go talk to these teams. You got to, you got to learn, you got to be willing to be a sponge. You got to be willing to be an intern, do that, check it out a little bit.
Yep. So what's the turnover rate? Like how long do these people stay? Like pit people, do they stay for years?
Yeah,
they do. They stay there a long time.
I mean, people have worked there all their lives, right?
Dang.
But the pit stops, that's different, right? I think that's in NASCAR, they have mechanics and a crew chief, whatever, but they fly in guys separately that just do the pit stops.
Okay.
Like college athletes get flown in on the day, boom, they suit up, pit stops, and then they leave. That's it. Wow. So they don't work on the cars at all. They just change the tires, fuel thing. Yeah. And so for IndyCar, though, our mechanics that are working on the car are also the guys that are doing the pit stops.
Oh, okay.
So there are guys all different ages, but if they're a good mechanic, you're also going to have to do pit stops as well.
Wow, so they got to be in shape as well.
Yeah, so you'll see actually a lot around town now. St. Vincent trains a lot of the teams. Every morning before I come in, there's a whole team of mechanics that are just leaving.
Yep.
So most of these teams, the mechanics, when they go to work, they go to the gym first. They have a trainer, and then they go to their job. So it's all a bit more athletic than I think people think it's supposed to be.
I'm sure it is. Well, we're coming to the end now, and I want to say thanks for coming day after your birthday. Happy birthday!
Thank you. Yeah.
But my last question for you would be, what is your favorite all-time racing movie?
Ooh.
I mean, I know I have mine. Mine is Days of Thunder.
It's a great film.
That is, that's
been on HBO lately, and I like every time it's been on, I'm like, we're gonna lay that on.
I can watch that at any point.
Yeah,
like that movie's great. That's my favorite racing movie.
People give me a lot of crap for it, but like I love Driven, and it is terrible movie.
Is it terrible?
Oh,
I like
Driven. It's just. My dad trained Sylvester Stallone for that movie.
Oh, okay.
So like it's kind of funny. Like he's got these great photos of him and Sylvester Stallone at the house. Like my Sylvester Stallone's got my dad in a headlock, which is very, very funny. But like a lot of it is just a lot of it is really cool because those era of racing cars were the best. They sounded the coolest. The drivers were the coolest, and they made it look like these drivers were heroes. I love that. I'm like, these guys are superstars.
But Driven
they date hot chicks.
Good.
You know what I mean? I was like, I like this. Like this was so cool. But a lot of people in the racing world are like, no, it's crazy. No one's sending cars into the forest through the skies. No one's sliding around and picking up nickels on their tires. You know what I mean? But I love Driven, and honestly though, Rush is the
Rush. I don't think I've seen Rush. That's the one. That's the one with Thor in it.
Yeah, Thor and
no, I saw that.
Yeah, it's so good. Like when it comes to like directing and like the story, Niki Lauda, James Hunt, like that was my dad's era of Formula One, which was really, that's the first movie that like I went to with my dad and he was like, yeah, a lot of that was pretty accurate. And, you know, like there's a guy like Peter Hunt, James Hunt's brother, who was like acting as his manager in the movie. That was my dad's accountant too when he was in Formula One. So like there was a lot that was like really cool to see and just kind of, they do such a good job, I think, representing the story and how crazy that era of Formula One was.
Sweet.
So watch it again, maybe.
I'm gonna watch it because I didn't remember it, but I'm pretty sure I did see it.
It's a great film.
Yeah, man. How can people reach you if they want to get in touch with you or watch your life?
So, I mean, I'm at Conor Daly 22 on Instagram and Twitter. I don't do Facebook really. I have a Facebook page that I post every now and then, but I love Instagram and Twitter. I love interacting with people, honestly. And then my Twitch channel as well is twitch.tv/Conor Daly 22. That's what I've been doing a lot of lately. Streaming iRacing, Call of Duty, whatever it is at the time. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be active out there and talk to people and interact, and it's fun.
You got any charities people can donate?
I don't have any like personal ones that I'm donating to, but like I always support JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, because you know they're helping kids, people out there, and yeah, I've done some events for them before, so it's always good.
Good. Well, I appreciate you coming, man.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Please come back.
Absolutely.
That sounds good, man.
Thank you.
Thanks.